Hello guys, Shane here with another video about brief history of video games. Lastly, we talked about the foundation of video game consoles and how the first commercial sold console, Magnovox Odyssey, has been created. Today we will continue with covering the first generation of consoles. As I said in previous video, each generation based on metrics are generally long between 5 to 7 years if we speak about major releases and technological peak. That means the first generation of consoles covers the period between 1972 to 1976. As we know, first generation of consoles began with release of Magnovox Odyssey in 1972, console which has been developed by Ralph H. Bayer's prototype named Brown Box. Over 3 years of existence on the market, 350,000 units has been sold. Despite being literally first and released in the beginning of the video game industry, it was never considered as a commercial success. In some way I understand that, because doing a first step in new founded industry is covered by unexplored waters and people really don't know much about how to engage people. But there were also issues what we knew. Differences in point of view between Magnovox and Bayer about market, PR and approach to the audience led into higher expectations by Magnovox, plus literally zero adaptability in the games, equipment and upgrades except built-in consoles variations. But still, impact of Odyssey is very important and all lessons gained from this help in evolution of gaming industry. In same year, alongside the release Magnovox Odyssey, the first company purely designed for video games and hardware, Atari, has been founded by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. After their initial release with their arcade game Computer Space under partnership company Syzygy Engineering, which overcame Galaxy Game and formed the video arcade systems. This experience gave Bushnell an idea to form a company to produce more games by licensing ideas to other companies, which led into creation of Atari. Bushnell hired Alan Alcorn, former colleague from Ampex, and gave him a project secretly meant to be a warm-up exercise. Also told Alcorn that he had a contact with General Electric for a product and asked him to create a simple game with one moving spot, 2 pedals and digits for score keeping. As we knew, that idea was not original because in some way we saw, for example, Computer Tennis from 1958. While Bushnell claimed that idea came from one of the iterations of Computer Tennis, Alcorn claimed it was a direct response from Magnovox Odyssey's tennis game. During development, Alcorn firstly examined schematics of Computer Space but found them to be illegible. He went into creating own designs based on his knowledge in Bushnell's game. Alcorn later added features to give the game more appeal, for example dividing the pedal into 8 segments to change the ball's angle of return or better acceleration of the ball. Also he added a feature where pedals were unable to reach the top of the screen. Alcorn also decided to give the game more difficulty and help limit the time the game could be played. However, he imagined that 2 skilled players could be able to play forever. 3 months into development, Bushnell asked Alcorn to add some sound features like realistic sound effects and a roaring crowd. There was some limitations for electronic space until Alcorn found that he used some sort of sync generator which can play different sounds. He constructed prototype based from Hitachi black and white television set, placed it into a 4-foot wooden cabinet and soldered the wires into boards to create the necessary circuitry. The prototype impressed Bushnell and Dabney so much that they felt could be a profitable product and decided to test its marketability. In August 1972, Bushnell and Alcorn installed the Pong prototype, a local bar and the Cabs Tavern. Place was selected due of relations with the owner, and they provided pinball machines to the bar already. Game received quick popularity while Bushnell tried to use Pong to fulfill his contract with Bally and Midway. Very quickly, Pong machine in the bar had technical issues, but not based on from circularly but was overflooded by inserted quarters. After hearing about the game's success, Bushnell decided there would be more profit for Atari to manufacture the game rather than license it. Bushnell had difficulty finding financial backing for Pong. Banks view it as a variant of pinball, which at the time the general public associated with the mafia. As you remember, back then pinball machines and various electromechanical arcades had massive society backlash and many cities tried to regulate this sort of gambling. After some negotiations, Atari obtained line of credit and expanded its facilities for assembly line. Atari announced Pong on 29 November 1972. Management sought assembly workers at the local unemployment office but was unable to keep it with demand. The first arcade cabinets produced were assembled very slowly, about 10 machines a day, many of which failed quality testing. Atari eventually streamlined the process and began producing the game in greater quantities. By 1973, they began shipping Pong to other countries with the aid of foreign partners. Especially in Japan, Pong met with a great success after release in November 1973. This was later sold to Namco. However, in Japan there was a big competition with local Pong clones released early by Sega Pongtron and Taito's Ele-Pong. The success of Pong led into movement to create more products, especially with arrival of the new electronic technologies and large-scale integration chips, which allowed pioneering in the new gaming concept. Atari began working on a reduction of Pong from the large arcade printed circuit board down to a small LSI chip for use in a home system. The initial development cost for a game on the single LSI chip was expensive, costing around $50,000, which is equivalent to around $388,000 in 2025. But once the chip was developed, it became significantly cheaper to mass produce the game as well as more difficult to reverse engineer. In 1974, Atari engineer Harold Lee proposed a home version of Pong that would connect to the television. The console was later named as a Home Pong. The system began development under the codename Darlene, named after an employee at Atari. Alcorn worked with Lee to develop the designs and prototype and base them on the same digital technology used in their arcade games. The two work in shifts to save money and time. Lee worked on the design logic during the day while Alcorn debugged the designs in the evenings. After designs were approved, fellow Atari engineer Bob Brown assisted Alcorn and Lee in building a prototype. The prototype consisted of a device attached to a wooden pedestal containing over 100 wires, which would eventually be replaced with a single chip designed by Alcorn and Lee. The chip had yet to be tested and built before the prototype was constructed. The chip was finished in the latter half of 1974 and was at the time the highest performing chip used in a consumer product. Bushnell and G. Lipkin, Atari's vice president of sales, approached toy and electronic retailers to sell Home Pong, but were rejected. Retailers felt the product was too expensive and would not interest consumers. Bushnell contacted Sears after coming across a Magnovox Odyssey advertisement in the sporting goods section of its catalog. Atari staff, including Bushnell and Lipkin, discussed the game with a representative Tom Quinn, who expressed enthusiasm and offered the company an exclusive deal. Believing that could find more favorable terms elsewhere, Atari's executives declined and continued to pursue toy retailers. In January 1975, Atari staff set up a Home Pong booth at the American Toy Fair in New York City, but was unsuccessful in soliciting orders due to the high price of the unit. While at show, they met Quinn again and, a few days later, set up a meeting with him to obtain a sales order. In order to gain approval from the sporting goods department, Quinn suggested Atari to demonstrate the game to executives in Chicago. Alcorn and Lipkin traveled to the Sears Tower and, despite a technical complication in connection with the antenna on the top of the building, which broadcast on the same channel as the game, they obtained approval. Bushnell told Quinn he could produce around 75,000 units in time for the Christmas season. However, Quinn requested double the amount. Though Bushnell knew Atari lacked capacity to manufacture 150,000 units, he agreed. Atari acquired a new factory through funding obtained by venture capitalist Don Valentine. Supervised by Jim Topp, the factory fulfilled the Sears order. The first units manufactured, branded with Sears Telegames name, started to sell around the end of October to mid-November 1975 with a one-year warranty of $98.95 and additional $7.95 to the optional AC adapter. Atari later released a version under its own brand in 1976. This release led obviously into problems and lawsuits. In April 1974, Magnovox filed a suit against Atari, Allied Leisure, Bally Midway, and Chicago Dynamics. Magnovox argued that Atari had infringed on Sanders Associates' patents relating both to the concept of TV games generally and to the interaction of players and machine-controlled objects rendered on the screen, and presented detailed records Ralph Baer kept on the Odyssey's design processing dating back to the 1966. Other documents included depositions from the witnesses and a signed guestbook that demonstrated Bushnell had played the Odyssey's table tennis game prior to releasing Pong. In response to claims that he saw the Odyssey, Bushnell later stated that "The fact is that I absolutely did see the Odyssey game, and I didn't think it was very clever." After considering his options, Bushnell decided to settle with Magnovox out of court in June 1976. Bushnell's lawyer felt they could win, however they estimate legal costs of around $1.5 million, which would have exceeded Atari funds. Magnovox offered Atari an agreement to become a licensee exactly same price, payable in 8 installments. In addition, Magnovox obtained the right to full information on Atari products publicly announced or released over the next year. Magnovox continued to pursue legal action against the other companies, and proceedings began shortly after Atari's settlement. The first case took place at the District Court in Chicago, with Judge John Grady presiding. Magnovox won the suit against the remaining defendants, and Atari may have delayed the announcement of the Atari 2600 by few months to avoid the disclosing information about the system under the settlement agreement. However, success of Pong and his home version exceeded the issues with the lawsuit. The game became one of the most iconic and impactful one of all time and became a trademark for Atari.
Oh, sir, we like this Super Pong by Atari.
I'm sold out. That's a demonstrator, but I've got lots of these.
Well, we want Super Pong by Atari.
Yes, but
Super Pong's 4-color games are more fun.
Well, how about this one?
Well, no, you see, we'll have more fun with Super Pong's 4-color games. There's Catch, Solitaire, Super Pong, and Pong. So we'll take this one.
Okay, sure you won't change your mind?
No. Why?
Because I wanted it.
Super Pong. It's not just another video game. It's a real Atari.
Next on the list, we have TV tennis electronics. The influence of Pong put a mark into development other consoles of the generation because it was easy to recreate. Console developed and released by Epoch in September 1975 in Japan is quite negligible but interesting for one technological standpoint. While all consoles of the generation has to be connected into television via cables, TV tennis works wirelessly and connects into television by UHF antenna.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco with 3 different games. Telstar Tennis with digital scoring, variable speeds. Telstar Hockey. Each player controls a goalie plus a forward on the other side. Oops, a goal. And Telstar Singles Handball, a game you play yourself. Telstar Handball, Tennis, Hockey. All 3 at an exciting low price. For great family fun, hitch your TV to a Telstar by Coleco.
1976, Coleco Telstar is a series of dedicated consoles, firstly based on Pong, but later offers different games. Over a period of 1976 to 1978, Coleco released 14 different models. The success of the first model put Coleco second in sales rankings with 1 million sold consoles.
素晴らしいボールの変化、鮮やかな9色のカラーがゲームの種類によって変わります。ラケットの大きさやボールのスピードが変えられるので、ハイテクニックなゲームが楽しめます。見るテレビから遊べるテレビへ。15種類ものゲームが楽しめるカラーテレビゲーム15、9800円のカラーテレビゲーム6もあります。
And last on the list, we had first Nintendo console named Color TV Game, which a bit aside from major releases, but his impact should be not forgotten. This series of 5 consoles were been sold between 1977 to 1983 exclusively in Japan. The success of console series was massive and became the most sold console of the first generation. This also led into development of family computer, but also most known Nintendo Entertainment System, which will become the juggernaut of consoles in 1983. Console was successful also due of lower costs on the market and became a testing ground for originally released arcade games like Breakout and introduced developer Shigeru Miyamoto, which later will become the greatest gaming developer of all time thanks to hits like Mario, Legend of the Zelda, Donkey Kong, Star Fox and Pikmin. Soon or later I will make a dedicated video about him because the story and success is something that exceeds anything in the gaming. And that's all from this video. I try to cover the major part of first generation of video game consoles and show how these first steps of new gaming platform has been created. It could look like the Pong and his dedicated console eat whole pie, but the impact was so massive on the industry. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you don't want to miss anything, I would consider to put a subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I will see you in next one. Peace!